Hello, I'm Robin and welcome to Multi-Music Technology. Today we're looking at the GForce software, OBE, Oberheim 8 Voice version 2. Now I imagine there's a lot of videos out there on this new reinvention, authentic recreation, emulation of this classic awesome monster of a synthesizer, and there's plenty of people out there better positioned than I am to talk about it with any kind of authority. I've never seen one, I've never played on one, but what I would like to relate today is just how flipping awesome this thing is. Now, version 1 released a year or so ago by GForce was only available on the Mac, and so it's not something I've been able to play with before. However, I've always enjoyed any SEM emulation I've come across. The SEM being the synthesizer expansion module from Oberheim. That little white creamy monosynth which has that filter that we love and it has this sound. So when GForce Software announced a version 2, I thought, well, I'd best have a look, because it's now available on Windows, and that means we can start getting a bit more interesting in a multi-touch Surface Pro audio type environment. This that I'm running it on here is a Microsoft Surface Pro 8. I'm right in the middle of sort of audio performance testing of this particular system, and this gives a brilliant opportunity just to show off exactly how fantastic this sort of synthesizer is on this sort of platform. So what I thought I would do, rather than dazzle you with what an 8 Voice is all about, I thought I would play some sounds, I'd fiddle around with some sounds just to give you an idea of exactly how sumptuous and mind-bogglingly emotional this synthesizer is. It's just the best thing. And I should of course say that GForce Software sent this to me in the hope that I might talk about it a little bit. So get that out of the way first. But they have no say over what I'm going to say in this video. But you know, if this is too long already, then the spoiler is that it's flipping fantastic. Right, let's have a play. Very quick overview. This is your front panel. You've got 8 of these separate synthesizer expander modules. Each one is a little monosynth. Each one works completely independently, and that is what gives the 8 Voice its distinctively characterful and extraordinary sound, and allows us to interact with polyphony in a way you don't normally do. Because all tied together, you've got an 8 Voice polyphonic synthesizer, but because each of them are individual, you can tune each monosynth, each 2 oscillator monosynth, individually and differently. So as you play, different voices are heard and they can sound completely, strangely different. It's kind of, it doesn't make any sense until you play with it. And then once it starts to reveal itself, your mind just goes boom, and you think, good Lord, this is a thing. So a couple of the patches then. It is a thing of just towering beauty. And what you'll see these red lights on here, that shows you which particular expanders are sounding at that time. And so you can go in there and individually change those voices. because of how it allocates different stems to the different notes that you press. Do you see, if I press one note at a time, it steps through them. And so it's going to sound different depending on which ones are active. They take on different notes. They take on different characters. But because this is software, GForce have been able to do interesting things, like you can group everything together and then just move one to move everything. Or I could ungroup them and play with individual voices again individually. It's just such a thing. Now this is patch 2. This is preset number 2. Alright, preset number 3. Now what's interesting with this particular sound is that it's stepping through each stem one after the other. You notice the red light going across. Now we could at this point engage the sequencer. Just going to have it play a single note. And at the moment, it's just focusing on module 8. We're going to put it through all of them. So it's now moving through all 8 stems, one after the other, step after step. So what I can do is individually set anything I like for each of the modules. I've not changed any notes on the sequencer, it's just playing one note, but it's stepping through each of them differently. In version 2 it has this new function called vintage, which you can dial in, which adds different variations to each of those individual modules. I could put this back into poly mode. I don't know any other synthesizer with which I can do that, with which I can program each voice individually to be completely something else, something different. I mean, if I wanted to, I could zoom into an individual module, and from here I could load an individual SEM. So for this one, I want it to be a bass something or other. I could then go to panel 6, load that to be, I don't know, that. Number 8, load that to be one of those, a bong. Yeah, why not? So this is just using it as individual synthesizers within a synthesizer. Just completely and utterly fascinating. Right, let's move on to another sound. Of course, this is using unison, so I've now got 8 of them stacked up, all being the same thing. If I group them all together again, let's zoom in on this one. Turn off unison mode, so it's now stepping through them individually. Doesn't sound quite as big and powerful as that massive unison, but now of course I can ungroup and edit these individually. Always interesting. There are hundreds of presets, hundreds and hundreds of different ones, including drum kits, which is kind of fascinating. Because you can imagine each SEM is now programmed to be a different percussive sound. Just come back to that vintage knob again. As you can see, I've got this sequence going through a single module here. There's a little bit of overlap, so you're getting this lovely detuning going on. If I stick that to go run through them all, it's now cycling through all 8 SEMs, and you should be able to hear how that changes as I increase the vintage knob. So there's now differences between them. It gets more pronounced as you turn that up. Then they're more evened out if you bring that back down. Pump it back up for that little bit more character. And with a touch of a button, either mono or poly, it just becomes, if you group it, it becomes a simple polysynth. The other interesting thing you can do is you can copy a SEM, so you like the sound that that one's doing, and you can paste that in to one of the other ones. So there you are, the OBE2, the Oberheim 8 voice by GForce Software, version 2 on Windows, on the Surface Pro 8, just acting like an absolute champ. What a fantastic thing. Touch control, multi-touch control over the interface, which is glorious and fantastic, and lets you play with it like an instrument. You're not having to map MIDI in there, although of course you can do that. of course. But the Surface platform just offers that sort of different level of creativity, like that you find on the iPad, of course, but with desktop software. And I think you can tell that I really quite like this synthesizer. You can just play with it for hours, on and on, for hours, swapping between grouping stuff together to get that more familiar shift of parameters, and then breaking it apart, and then changing individual voices into something, then moving those about, then bringing it back together again, and then pulling it apart. I'm sure you can tell me in the comments if there's another synthesizer that does that sort of thing, or invites that sort of level of engagement, but I can't think of one. So it has this sense of being unique, of having a unique amount of play. I mean, what it does feel like is that per step automation that you apply to things. If you've got either a piece of hardware or software where per step in a sequencer you can apply different things to different steps, different amounts of modulation, different sound changes and patch changes within that thing, that's kind of the vibe that it gives you, but within a single synthesizer, which you can then stop the sequencer and play as if you're playing like a polyphonic synthesizer. It's just different. And because you're essentially playing with each individual synth, it has a whole other vibe to it. So you're not just applying modulation, you're not just drawing in an automation line, you are crafting individual sounds on 8 different synthesizers all at the same time. That's phenomenal. I love it. Absolutely love it. So there you go. That's GForce Software OBE V2, endorsed by Tom Oberheim, no less, and available for, I think, an introductory price about 119 quid, which is great. And it is now, of course, available on Windows as it was previously on Mac. If you own it on a Mac version 1, then it's a free update, which is fantastic. And you can't really say fairer than that. So there we go. I hope that was useful or interesting or something. I'm going to spend the rest of the day, I imagine, right here, right now, and I suggest you go off and download the trial at the very least and give it a go. And in the meantime, go make some tunes.